It's impossible to mention Tatra without thinking of its Beetle-like body and the rear-placed V8 engine. It was the 77 and 87 models that made the brand famous during the interwar period, known to have killed dozens of German officers due to their high top speed and 911-like oversteer behavior. These cars were built side by side on the production line with a 3-liter overhead cam engine of 1930s technology. The aluminum overhead cam engine was a high-tech power plant at the time, but the company was looking further into the future, aiming to develop a completely new engine. By the time the Tatra 87 hit the market, a man named engineer Louis Makeley had finished his studies in 1935 at a technological university in Brno. After years working in an engine department at Škoda Plzeň, he was hired by Tatra Koprivnice in 1948 and managed to fine-tune Tatra's V12 diesel engine, achieving greater fuel efficiency by burning fuel in the piston dishes. Makeley was later assigned to design a new gas burner. As part of the engine development, the T603 unit was placed into a single-seater race car and put to the test. The Tatra 607 Monopost was an ambitious project developed to fit into the new Formula 2 racing category, designed to allow smaller, lighter and cheaper cars to be produced for more budget-friendly racing. Formula 1 required larger engines, while F2 limited engines to 2-liter naturally aspirated or 500cc supercharged. One of the first 607s was powered by a 2-liter engine driven by Bruno Sojka for marketing purposes in Ostrava. Another vehicle had a 2.3-liter engine and joined Sojka's car during a Czechoslovakian GP in Brno in 1950. Both cars, with the same compression ratio of 6.5:1, achieved about the same output of 95 horsepower and a top speed of 190 km/h. At the same time, a detuned version with 75 horsepower was placed into a front-engine Tatra 805 truck made for the army. The figures were laughable, but it was the beginning of the T603 engine development. The T603 engine, being an overhead valve unit, was quite interesting as it succeeded an overhead cam unit, which today is considered superior technology. The T603 engine had 8 cylinders in a 90-degree bang angle with 8 separate heads. Typically for Tatra, it was purely air-cooled with the V-bell-driven twin cooling fans, while fuel was delivered via 2 downdraft Solex 32 EFF carburetors. The camshaft was high-mounted inside the aluminum engine block and operated valves in hemispherical combustion chambers with a 90-degree valve angle. Unlike Tatra's diesel engines, the T603 engine was constructed using a single-piece cross-plane crankshaft on plain bearings with 2-piece connecting rods. Used in the 607, the V8 was paired with a 4-speed, fully synchronized transmission in a steel space frame chassis with front double wishbones and rear swing axles, a base similar to the Tatra 600. But unlike the 600, it was a rear mid-engine car, which was not as popular a layout even among Grand Prix race cars in the 1950s. Yet in 1953, the engine underwent a significant overhaul, which included a larger bore of 75mm and longer stroke of 72mm. This brought the displacement up to 2,545cc and notable power increase to 150 horsepower at 6,000 rpm. Soon, a power of 165 horsepower became a reality, and around the time, Tatra was playing with an exhaust gas ejector cooling suggested and engineered by Makeley. It had front-mounted oil cooler, and like many other air-cooled engines, the T603 motor also used fans to cool itself down, but Makeley designed a system that benefited from kinetic energy of the exhaust gas. This system was designed to pull fresh air through the engine thanks to the movement of the exhaust right from the headers. They managed to fine-tune it so much that the actual cooling fans were redundant, massively increasing efficiency and engine power. Those fans were huge power consumers, so achieving a comparable or even better cooling effect while using no moving parts was an incredibly genius engineering. Interestingly, the V8 was quite light, weighing just 160 kilograms filled with oil. Furthermore, they increased the compression ratio dramatically to 11:1, which was later upped further to the 12.8:1 mark. Using 4 twin-barrel Webers, larger intake valves and a special fuel mixture of 70% methanol, 15% aviation gasoline and 12% benzene with other substances, the 607 was capable of delivering 200 horsepower at 8,000 rpm. Much of this increased power was achieved thanks to the superior engine cooling by the exhaust ejector system. It was getting seriously powerful, and for some reason they even made a smaller sub 2.5 liter engine with a 70mm stroke crankshaft. There were speculations that Tatra aimed into Formula 1, as for 1954 onwards it was allowed to have a maximum of 2.5 liter or 750cc supercharged. Engine-wise it would be legal, but the power was significantly down compared to the best on the grid. While it may not have a chance to win, it was really close to being there as the first Czech or Slovak race car to do so. But even if they wanted to, the Czechoslovak regime was strict and most likely Tatra would not be allowed to participate anyway. However, the Tatra 607 was achieving dozens of victories and podiums at local GPs and hill climb events. Nothing could stop it except the regime, preventing it from taking part in Western races as well. Ever since 1950, the 603 engine was placed into the Tatra 87 for road car testing and eventually sold on the market. Compared to the overhead cam 3 liter, it was a small engine, but packed about 20% more power delivered at higher revs. It wasn't the 200 horsepower Formula 1 engine, but 95 horsepower at 5,000 rpm was enough to propel the limousine up to 160 km per hour. Furthermore, in 1958, the overhead valve V8 was also used in the new executive limousine, the Tatra 603 model that later became iconic for the brand. The 2.5 liter engine first had 99 horsepower and then closer to the end of the lifespan, up to 105 horsepower. Its racing version would have about 150 horsepower using fan air cooling, but they used ejector cooling again, squeezing up to 170 horsepower and 250 Nm from the same motor. The downside was an incredibly loud noise caused by an absence of any silencers, and that prevented it from being used in a production car. The noise was around 105 decibels, which represents hearing endangering levels. The 603 was the only engine used in the actual Tatra 603 model, and it was discontinued after 20 years of production in 1975. Its successor, the 613, reverted back to the overhead cam technology. It's fascinating to see the evolution of the T603 engine and the significant power increase achieved through various modifications. The exhaust gas ejector cooling system designed by Mackele was a stroke of genius, allowing for more efficient engine cooling without the need for power-consuming fans. It's a shame that the political regime prevented the Tatra 607 from participating in the Western races, as it was proving to be a successful contender in local events. It's interesting to speculate how the car may have fared in Formula 1, but the limitations of the regime and the car's power output likely would have made it difficult to compete at the highest levels of the sport. Nonetheless, the Tatra 607 remains a fascinating piece of the automotive history, showcasing the ingenuity and technical expertise of Tatra's engineers.